How did Harlan become the first AI terrorist?
Is this film a forewarning of the dangers of AI?
Will Atlas be able to bring herself to trust AI?
And is Atlas the dawning of J.Lo's emergence as an action hero?
Join Red and Red Real Reviews in a battle between humans and AI in the Netflix movie Atlas.
My God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Ahoy, ladies! I didn't see you there. Would you guys like to set sail on this ocean of flavor with me? I'll be your captain.
I don't think we figure out exactly who we are all at once.
So it learns information about me?
Now, say my name.
Dude, if you think that's bad, go to Google Earth and type in your address.
And I knew exactly what to do, but in a much more real sense, I had no idea what to do.
Maybe I don't want you to feel like you stand out.
Sometimes you gotta work a little so you can ball a lot.
Identity theft is not a joke, Jim. Millions of families suffer every year.
A lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of a sheep.
Michael! Oh, that's funny. Michael!
Heisenberg. You're goddamn right.
But it's always a good idea to demonstrate to your coworkers that you are capable of withstanding a tremendous amount of pain.
The Lannisters send their regards.
Been staring at this board for days.
Mac, half the employees in this building have been made up. This office is a goddamn ghost town.
Dracarys.
And welcome back. This is a special episode 16, where I never thought I would say this, but we are covering a J.Lo movie.
Happy Sweet 16 to us indeed.
Yeah, Happy Sweet 16 is a J.Lo movie. And I have to admit, I have to be a little frank. So when you said, oh, maybe we can cover that J.Lo movie coming out, I was like, first of all, I was like, there's a J.Lo movie coming out on Netflix. Okay, I haven't heard of it. Second of all, I was like, oof, although I do prefer J.Lo as an actress, I wanted to say that. I think her music is awful. I think her
You thought my co-host is high off his keister.
Yeah, I was like, really? A J.Lo movie? No. I mean, let's be honest here. A lot of the times her work is never Oscar material, right? But she's made some romantic comedies and movies that I've enjoyed, even though they're not the best. Maybe they're predictable. And this one was a little bit predictable. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I was pleasantly surprised. I found this to be pretty entertaining. So we'll go into that, but starting off, I didn't know anything about the movie at all. I just knew it looked like it was, eventually I started seeing ads once I knew we were covering it, and looked a little sci-fi and a little futuristic maybe, but I wasn't really sure what it was about. And I couldn't tell just from seeing like a still shot of the movie poster. So I did sort of purposely detach from looking too far into it. I just didn't want to leave any sort of impression in my mind before I actually watched it. The only thing I want to be, just get it off my chest. I did look something up about 5 minutes into the movie because the math wasn't mathing for me. So, in the beginning, the first 5 minutes, which was great, they kind of give a nice little, I wouldn't say update, but they give a nice little exposition background information about where we are in the story, which is great, so that we can just get into the story. So they talk about how the fact that they talk about Harlan and the fact that this little girl is 10 or 11, I think they say. And then they say there's, a title on the screen that says 28 years later. So I'm like, wait, are they trying to say that J.Lo as Atlas is this little girl from the beginning that they referenced? And I'm like, that can't be right. I'm like, that would make her like 39. I'm like, J.Lo's like 54. So yeah, I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I looked up J.Lo's age Atlas, or I tried to look it up, and I came up with a review where someone was kind of giving the movie a mediocre review, and I was like, oh, I don't want to see any of this. But they did say, yeah, I found it laughable that, and I think J.Lo actually executive produced or produced this movie. So the fact that she's kind of casting herself as a 39-year-old when she's in her mid 50s is a little bit delulu, right?
A little bit, but she could still pull off 39.
Think about it. I was well, okay, don't get me wrong. She's very pretty, but I don't think she's that age defying. I mean, when I was thinking about it, my birthday's in January. I'm 37, so I'm more towards 38. That would mean that J.Lo as Atlas would be like maybe a little over a year older than me. And that just didn't seem right to me at all.
Who's more age defying, J.Lo or Kate Beckinsale?
I have to say J.Lo, because recently Kate Beckinsale messed with her face.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She does not look that natural or that good as of late. So
Well, you don't defy age if you go to science.
right. So yeah, I thought the age thing was a little bit wonky off the out the gate. So I mean, just getting into it, did you know anything about the movie before you watched it, or did you kind of go into it blindly as well?
I went through it blind, as I normally do, with movies, shows, whatever, unless something is like so overhyped, advertised that it's impossible not to have a
Right.
preconceived notion. I will say, looking at the poster art and like maybe one trailer that I saw for it, it kind of gave me Pacific Rim vibes, seeing the large mech suits. So I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be like an action, shoot 'em up, futuristic kind of thing. I wasn't expecting it to turn out the way it did.
Yeah.
I mean, I was more pleasantly surprised by it as far as the script having more of a serious feel. It didn't feel silly. Again, we're going to get into it later, but the predictability of it, I wasn't so thrown off by it. Other than the robot stating the pronouns, I didn't have any eye rolls during it. So, aside from that, I was generally pleased with the way it started and the way it kept going. So, I won't give my final thoughts quite yet, obviously, but.
Did you see my notes, or did you write that down in your notes too? The pronoun
no, that's all
thing.
me.
I wrote that down in my notes. They're on the side there. I did say I put bot Zoe gives pronouns, and then I did the eye rolling face.
Emoji. Eye roll
I
emoji.
I thought the exact same thing. That's so funny. So yeah, I did think that, yeah, I mean, it's a serious issue. It's an issue that we kind of face today. So we'll talk a little bit more about the themes and everything going into the movie, but yeah, it did. I mean, there were some little bits of comedy sprinkled in there from Smith, little comedy nuggets that he gave us as he was feeling out how to develop a sense of humor for himself. So that was funny, but yeah, I generally think that it's a serious issue that they tackled, kind of talking about AI versus human. Will they rise up against us at some point? Is that inevitable, or are they kind? Are they made to be kind? So yeah, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised too. Now, with the big chunk of the plot having to do with AI, I mean, the whole plot was let's find Harlan. We have to deal with him. Let's capture him alive so we can figure out what led him to manipulate all of these other bots. So, with the big chunk of the plot having to do with Harlan and AI, there are a lot of themes or lessons brought up surrounding AI or technology, whether they're superior to human capabilities, whether they're superior to human connection. What did you see as being the main lessons to kind of take from this, or that were being driven home?
Well, I'll put a disclaimer out right off the
Uh-oh.
top, since you did that on the first topic. I think AI is going to be the downfall of humanity. I don't think, based on the way human nature has been and a lot of other things, with technology emerging as something useful, as something convenient, and then it just overtaking and just becoming too ingrained in our lives when we're, doing this all the
Right.
time, and, kind of taking away from a more human nature of going about society. So I am not the biggest AI fan, but the way this movie went, for like the first, I would say, three-quarters of it, it kind of was more resonating with my opinions about AI, because Atlas does not trust it. She doesn't
Yes.
want to wear the Neuralink. She doesn't want Smith to pry into her memories and kind of, learn her, so to speak. So there were a lot of things about the way this movie went for the vast majority of it, which I resonate. I think, okay, this is a good message. This is a good message. And then, of course, the end, which I know they kind of did to more of like a happy ending, feel good thing.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't like how this is kind of conditioning people to have a more softer opinion of AI and its relevance, or I don't want to say duty, but influence on our lives, for lack of a better
Right.
word.
Like you said, influence. And when you were talking about that, I just thought of almost propaganda in a way. Like it's trying to frame AI as a more positive thing. But yeah, I mean, I understood why Atlas was skeptical, and I totally understood that, and it did resonate with me because that was sort of what I thought. And part of you was like, oh, just connect, like like
Yeah.
just take the damn Neuralink and connect. Like, what's the worst that could happen? But yeah, you are kind of like, you know what? I get it, because I probably would be scared to do the same thing. It's you wonder whether you can trust AI. Right now, the way that it is, they're not just as good as a human with most things. And I'll say that about Chat GPT or any other bot out there that's usable for everyone. But it just kind of begs the question, will they eventually get smarter to the point where they'll betray us, the ones that created them? And we've also seen it being a result of whoever programmed or whoever kind of creates them has an influence over what they become. For example, everyone proved how all of the AI bots out now are biased. They're politically biased, they're socially biased, in all sorts of ways. The questions that you ask it, the answers that you give it is a result of who coded it and who came up with the instructions of and built it. So that kind of determines how it turns out, and it's just going to keep changing over time.
Yeah, and to that point, especially as far as biases are concerned, like I said, through most of the movie, it was, going a certain way in my head, and I was comparing it to Leave the World Behind, which was another Netflix movie, uh, uh, ironically enough, produced by the Obamas, and it
Yes.
was a forewarning of cyber attacks and leaving the world in a very desolate shape because we're so reliant on technology. What's going to happen when it all shuts down and we don't know what's going on in the world? And I'm thinking to myself, like, Well, first of all, I found the movie ironic, being the fact it was produced by, globalist politicians. Why would
Right.
globalist politicians care if people question the danger of cyber attacks? But anyway, I digress. But like I kind of likened it to that in a sense where it was trying to come off as a warning, and then obviously it turned a little bit at the end. But yeah, the biases thing, and like you said with Chat GPT, like one day it's writing you term papers and essays, and the next day it's hunting you down in your living room.
Right. I mean, you don't know. And you know what? Specifically, neural links are something that really definitely give me pause and make me nervous. Hearing about, wasn't Elon the one who developed the neural link thing where he was kind of bragging about, this is the first guy to think a thought and have it tweeted out.
Mm-hmm.
And, they have one guy who's testing this neural link. He's all plugged in and he's doing it. And I just find that to be kind of disturbing, to be quite honest. I normally like Elon and everything, but this whole neural link thing just makes me really, really nervous. I don't like the idea of plugging this device like into your body and it having access to everything in your mind. I don't like that.
Not just access, but control. And
Yeah.
it's not the first time the idea of a Neuralink or the indirect quote unquote power that a Neuralink device can have has been introduced in entertainment. I think back to the Kingsman movies. I'm pretty sure it was the first one. They all had the enemies, the villains in the film, conditioned everyone to want this implant in their brain. So, they could, if they wanted to know how to get somewhere, they could just think of, instead of going to Google Maps, they just think of where it goes and it would tell them.
Right.
Or, they want to post on social media and they would just think of it and it would be posted, that sort of thing. And the masses of society all bought in, got the device implanted in their brains, and then by the end, they started setting the things off like explosive devices and blowing everyone's heads off. And then of course the other thing, and this wasn't necessarily a neural device, but it was still something up in the region of your head that triggers a signal that can have devastating effects in Law Abiding Citizen, where Gerard Butler plays Clyde, whose family is brutally murdered. They go on trial. It winds up being a plea bargain rather than going to trial and risk them getting out on a technicality and being found not guilty. So he goes off on this revenge plot, years later where he enacts it. And there was one scene where one of the judges receives a phone call and he triggers this signal, an auditory signal that like blows out the judge's brain. So it's like that, kind of along the same vein of something implanted in your brain for, you think it's convenience. And I know, you notice in society how people are addicted to technology,
right,
for things far more convenient. So I could see society buying into a neural link like they showed in this one. And it's just like, I'm with you, that like absolutely terrifying. Like, don't put anything like that can be controlled by anything other than me anywhere near my brain.
Right. I mean, it's not even Neuralink. Like, what you said, that could be done with Bluetooth, couldn't it? If you think about
Probably,
it, couldn't that be
yeah.
done with AirPods or something like that? So
Wi-Fi.
I mean, I know that Law Abiding Citizen is what, 2010 or 2012 or something like that,
Somewhere
but
around there.
it was a while ago, but technology was different. Great movie, love Gerard Butler. But yeah, I mean, it's what things are, what the opportunities are for what to do that could be dangerous. And that's just what makes me wonder a little bit. So shifting from the themes and the lessons and the heavy part of AI versus human, a big portion of the movie
got a little deep there.
I know. Let's take it up a little bit of a notch. So let's, instead of sinking down, let's elevate a little bit. So another big portion of the movie was the bond forming between Smith and Atlas and them connecting to each other, not really just through the neural link, but really starting to know each other. So what did you think of that relationship?
I found it hilarious more often than not.
Yeah.
I there I can't remember like the exact quotes, but I thought it was funny every time they were talking about coffee. And I think like
Yeah.
and she was always and Alice was always goddamn this, goddamn that. And I think Smith at one point said, you need your goddamn coffee or something. So
Yeah.
like there was a comical rapport between them.
Oh yeah.
And it was not done in a way that was cheesy. Like it was a bit authentic in the style of the film,
Mm-hmm.
creating this learning experience Smith's
Yeah.
generating regarding Atlas's personality.
Yeah, I didn't find it cheesy at all. I mean, there were a lot of interactions. We'll go into later a bit of some of the quotes. A lot of them are Smiths that were funny. But you know, there were those funny interactions as he was getting a grasp of her humor. And obviously it's just like, okay, Atlas, this lady's just serious about her coffee. And I get it. I mean, I have a cup a day and I look so forward to it. So like I get why she needs to have her coffee, right? So I mean, he starts to kind of latch onto her behavior and who she is, and like he calls her out at one point for using sarcasm as a coping mechanism, and I'm like damn, Smith is getting all psychoanalyst on
Yeah,
her.
edgy.
um yeah, but I mean, they had those funny little interactions and everything, and say what you will about J.Lo's acting, being questionable or corny in the past, but she actually, with her acting, I feel like she made me care about Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Just with the end, and we'll again talk about that later, but just the moments between them at the very very end were just very touching, and you're like, you start to feel kind of silly, like, why am I feeling this way about this relationship with a damn AI and J.Lo, who's a 54-year-old trying to be 39. Like, I felt silly about it, but like the end like brought me to tears because I was just so touched about this bond that formed between them. So I mean, I give credit to J.Lo for that, because that was her acting that helped do that.
I did not cry. However, I did I did that the moment it's hard not to get a warm feeling from the end when he's about to shut down and
Mm,
he gives her the little sustenance cube that tastes like coffee. It was kind of like uh, a human touch from
yeah.
otherwise robotic personality.
Yeah, that was sweet. I liked that moment, and I liked the, as they were getting to know each other, the callback to pie or cake, like that at the end,
Mm,
the callback to that, because I mean, I'm a pie person. I like both, but I like pie more. And I had pies at my wedding, which you can attest to.
yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting, that was their, the whole module, like the introduction module or something, was like, that was the getting to know you question, pie or cake,
And
like
she
dogs or
refused to
cats.
answer. She wouldn't. She refused to answer too.
Yeah, yeah. So that was why it was funny, and it was sweet, the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think you started to latch onto their relationship
Mm,
because she was so apprehensive to
mm-hmm.
talking to him, letting him get to know her, to learn her personality, her mannerisms, because she was so apprehensive to that. I think and 90%, let's be honest, 90% of the film was just the two of them.
Right.
So that there was no distractions in the film to lead you away from that growing bond between the two of them.
Right. And I mean, in the beginning, it totally made sense why she didn't want to trust him. So as there was more trust between them, and as they were getting to know each other and really helping each other. And I mean, kudos too to the man who voiced Smith, because I thought he did an excellent job. And I think I looked him up, and I hadn't seen anything that he was in, but I mean he's a working actor. He's been in several things, but I almost thought for a second, I don't know if you did, that I heard his voice and I was like, who is this? I feel like I know who this is, right?
He just sounded like generic robotic voice.
Yeah, I mean, I just, as it got closer to the end, just the emotions he was putting out in his voice, even though it was just like you put a generic robot voice, it's
Yeah. Which I don't want to
like
downplay.
GPS voice.
Yeah,
right.
I don't want to downplay. That's hard to pull off and have the consistency to have the consistency of the role be throughout the entire project.
Mm-hmm.
Like, granted, I know you don't shoot a film all in one shot, but at the same time, like, to just constantly have the same voice and personality in your head to portray that character, portray that type of portrayal. I know that was redundant, but to be that consistent is still a skill in of itself.
Yeah, and I mean he conveyed a lot of emotion, and he was able to just maintain this very ordinary man's voice, but still able to convey that. So I think it was the combination of J.Lo's acting and his voice that really held everything together. Because, like you said, they had to carry the entire movie pretty much on their own.
Yeah, with two actors, one of which is never on screen.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I have a quote or two from Elias, who was Sterling K. Brown's character, which
Yay,
he was
Randall.
He wasn't in it a lot. I mean, he was in it at the beginning, he was in it at the end, but he did have a couple quotes, so we'll go over those. But he was one of the only major actors in the movie besides J.Lo. So yeah, the AI bot and the lady who normally makes garbage music had to carry the entire movie.
I don't have quite the fervor against her music, but if we're comparing her to Shakira, obviously she's not hold a candle to Shakira.
Well, at least, okay, Shakira, yes, does to her. She's said before that she sounds like a goat, and like I agree with that, but J.Lo just has the most thin, weak voice that I've ever heard in my life. And at least Shakira can sing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She can belt. She's got some. J.Lo just please stick to acting. That's my one plea. So there was a little bit of we mentioned that this movie was a little bit predictable. Like, it wasn't a super large surprise when there was this big reveal, right? Mm-hmm. So the big reveal was when we realized that Harlan didn't break the code to kill 3 million people with the bots that he turned. It was actually Atlas's fault, or at least she held herself responsible, because she was basically jealous of Harlan for getting her mother's attention. And so she kind of went to him for help, and he manipulated her in such a way. So, I mean, this whole big reveal wasn't super surprising to me, but was it surprising for you, or was there any part of it that you saw coming?
I mean, I guess I try to always keep myself not thinking ahead so far where I'm let down by a surprise. But if I think of a film as being predictable, I try to think of it in retrospect. Like, after it happens, I'm like, okay, did I see that coming? Was that predictable? Or should I have seen that coming? Was that predictable? That sort of thing. And yes, it's true. I mean, it did have a very classic, for lack of a better word, track to the film. Uh, story establishment, uh, catastrophic event that throws everything into haywire, story building, relationship building arc, and then massive battle climax where good vanquishes evil. So it was a very tried and true story. But as far as comparing it to the main characters, the ending did kind of ring as a resolution for her coping mechanism. Like does not she set up Harlan inadvertently to become what he became as a coping mechanism because of her distrust in AI. Like that was or I should say that was the catalyst to her distrust in AI.
Right. So I mean, all the pieces were there. Like we just didn't probably put them all together. But like, I mean, we saw that she kind of harbored resentment towards AI. We just didn't really exactly know why. I mean, obviously we know that Harlan was basically her sibling. I mean, they grew up together sort of. So I mean, anyone would be screwed up by that, but just I think that we just didn't know the extent of why she distrusted AI. It was really that she had been experiencing this guilt for like, I mean, 28 years is a long time. It's almost 30 years. You can round up. So that's a long time to experience guilt over this event. And I mean, anyone would, because 3 million people died. That's a lot of people. That's nothing to sneeze at. But in the same regard, I mean, yes, you can't just be like, don't feel guilty about that. But she was a child. I mean, it was the fact that she felt jealousy towards an AI bot sibling, like it's nothing. Like she can't blame herself for that. She was a 11-year-old child. Like it's just ridiculous. But I mean, I get it. I get it. It all makes sense. Like this reveal made sense to me.
Well, guilt is a good word. Probably the best word to like rationalize this, because and you have to think like maybe it was a bit of naivete on her end, letting Harlan kind of take over and become his own thing. Because obviously you're a child, you're not going to necessarily understand what AI is capable of. But AI, if you understand what AI is, it's going to learn behavior. It's going to bridge gaps between what you know and what you don't know, what you're doing and what you're not capable of doing. So of course, if you let it grow and fester, of course it's going to become something that's going to overtake and potentially do damage. So guilt probably is the best word to kind of describe it. And from a predictability standpoint, if you were to unleash Harlan in that capacity and you understood what AI was capable of, then yes, everything should have been predictable.
Yeah.
That was a very long-winded way for me to get around to saying what I wanted to say.
No, I mean that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, you wrote that she was hard on herself. Yeah, she was really hard on herself. But I mean, she learned a lesson. Yes, she was guilty about it for years, but she learned a lesson. She was like, okay, well, when I was a kid, that happened because I let him manipulate me, but I'm never having that happen again with AI. So that's the reason why she was so standoffish with Smith, even just, I don't want that Neuralink. I just don't want anything like what happened when I was a child to happen ever again.
Yeah, and people should realize not to be hard on themselves when their decisions were based in naivete. Because you don't know any better. That's when you're naive, when you don't know any better.
Right. When you're a child, it's like it's like you're not even the same person almost. People who experience abuse or manipulation when they're a child, like they didn't know any better. So it's like they're very detached from it because if you only knew then what you knew now, things would be totally different and your life would be totally different. So,
Right.
so yeah, not to get heavy or deep again. So let's.
The bottom line, if any of us could go back to our childhood and tell our child self one thing, we'd say, don't ask to grow up.
Yes. Peter Pan. Peter Pan had it right.
That's right.
So yeah, so let's not drag it down. Let's bring it up a little bit. So there were tons of quotables. A lot of these were from Smith, but what were some funny quotes that you had written down?
A lot of the funny parts were when he's trying to learn Atlas.
Yeah.
One thing I got a kick out of, not necessarily because of the nature of the line itself, but because, letting the gears turn in my head, what's going to happen if people, watch this movie on Society, when she gets into the mech suit and, obviously she's apprehensive to this. And they asked her like, "Oh, what voice do you want?" And she just says default, like, I don't care, default, whatever.
Yeah.
And it starts playing a male's voice. I'm like, oh, there's gonna be some angry keyboard warrior out there, like, oh, the default voice is a white male, blah blah blah. It's like that's gonna tick someone off. So that wasn't necessarily funny from the quote itself, but funny because liberal Hollywood puts something like that in there. It's like, oh, this is gonna make somebody mad.
Yeah, it's like they're going to be like, male privilege or white privilege. That's very clearly a white male's voice.
I did get a kick out of one thing. So I think it was right before they got captured by Harlan. And they're trying to think, okay, what do we do now? What do we do now? And they had previously set up that Harlan is always 3 steps ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
He's not only learning people's behavior, but he's predicting your behavior and what you're going to do next. So I was like, well, we got to think of what's the one thing he hasn't thought of yet. And Alice is like, okay, well, what is that? And Smith just goes, I don't know, but that ion bomb sure would have been good right about now. Calling back to a previous scene where she released this bomb just to be rid of all these little grunts or bugs that were coming at him. And Smith's like, no, I wouldn't do that. That's kind of a last ditch defense thing.
Yeah, and I think when he was going over the weapons, he was like, you only have one of those. You have to use it wisely. You only have one. Remember that.
So yeah, there was, I don't know, but that would have been good right about now.
Yeah, I thought that was, and that was his delivery, the voice actor, just his delivery was so like, I mean, you couldn't see his face obviously, but so deadpan, like just so perfect with all these comedic quotes. So the one that I thought was really funny was when I forget how, but she hurts her legs. Doesn't she have a bone pop through her leg? So the computer basically comes online and is like gonna like mechanically fix her leg. So yeah, this metal contraption comes out and like is basically telling her it's gonna set her leg. So then it does that and she's like screaming in agony, and then Smith says, I may have missed a step. Here's something for pain. And that's when he puts out the weird little lollipop thing, the square lollipop. And then she's like laughing because she's like, this is so absurd that he's giving me a lollipop. And he's like, what's funny? Like, he doesn't understand why she's laughing. Like he was just like, oh, what? I offered you a lollipop, like for the pain. Like, what are you doing? He just took it so seriously because that was when he was kind of developing his humor.
He didn't know the metaphorical purpose behind the lollipop. You give a kid a lollipop when they leave the doctor's office. Like, I was like, okay, he may have learned that, like, and all their food that Smith could generate for the pilots or like the Rangers' sustenance were all in cube form with sitting on top of a stick. So he's not associating the lollipop metaphor to anything outside of his normal behavior.
Yeah, he's just like, what's weird about that?
Yeah.
Like, why are you laughing at me? Um, and then oh, so I didn't, I mean, I could have written down a million Smith lines, like they were so funny. There was quite a few. So I just tried to pick a couple. So I have a couple lines from other characters just for a little change up. So I thought this was funny just because, obviously this is a movie that is written in present day, but it's written like in the future. So one of the humorous lines was about the present. So Val, who is Atlas's mom, they show her giving a video of a speech or something, or when she's talking to her team, and she was talking about Atlas. And she was, I don't know if she was talking about what gave her the idea to create Harlan or something like that. I'm not sure what the speech was about, but she was talking about Atlas, and she goes, "Oh yeah, she got a hold of my old smartphone. Anyone remember those?" And the whole crowd laughs.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was hilarious that they were, bringing up something that was ancient technology, ancient, whatever.
Ancient, that's right.
Yeah, like that's like us bringing up 8-track or something like that. You know what I mean? Like in however many years or 30 years, it's going to be, oh yeah, remember iPhones? Those things were weird. Oh my God, so funny. So I thought that was crazy. And
Do you
then
remember we talked to people on something like this?
Yeah. And then side note, Atlas's mom, she wasn't like a huge character at all. But I was looking at her and I'm like, who is this lady? And it was driving me absolutely insane. And then when I looked it up, it turned out to be someone from, this was episode 1 that we covered, wasn't it? Lincoln Lawyer?
Yes, and I wore the same t-shirt for the pilot.
It was Lisa Trammell. Lisa from Lincoln Lawyer season 2. So I was like, oh, crossover. So I thought that was so funny. And I recognized her and I could not for the life of me figure out who she was. But I'm glad. I was like, that makes sense because we just saw her, well, like a year ago. But
yeah. Well, I'm glad you looked it up because I also recognized her and couldn't put my finger on who it was.
Yeah.
But I wasn't bothered enough by it to look it up. So I'm glad you were.
Doesn't that make so much sense?
Yes.
For some reason she was giving me like Jean Grey vibes. Like I was like, isn't that the Jean Grey lady? And I was like, no, that can't be. She's older, I think.
Yeah, probably.
So that checked out, but I was happy about this. So let's give Sterling K. Brown his big moment. So we'll do one of his quotes of Colonel Elias Banker. Forget what his last name was. Banks. Thank you. So he, when Atlas comes in and she first talks to the team, right? She's kind of being a little negative and like scaring them, I think. So he kind of pulls her aside. He's like, oh, hold up. And he's like, well, I'm sure there's a time for your come to Jesus doomsday scenarios, but basically saying like, it's not now, like, curb that and let's take it down a notch.
Yeah. Ease up. This is my op.
Right. But I thought that was funny. Come to Jesus doomsday scenarios. Like just, I feel like totally a Randall thing or maybe because Sterling K. Brown is Randall.
Yeah,
right?
It is a Randall thing.
I think I think Sterling K. Brown, like that's just like, I think he plays a little bit of himself in Randall, or like anything that he's in, he's always got funny. American Fiction he was in, right?
I was gonna say that as well because that one he almost kind of had that similar kind of Randall spirit as well.
Right. And not like a snarkiness necessarily, but he's just got a little like quick-witted
zing
in him. He does zingers. He's a good zinger in any role he plays. And I mean, we really didn't talk about Casca a lot, which that was a whole thing. I was like, why did they just have 30 million versions of Casca? Like, how many copies of this guy did they make?
Yeah, for someone that was a relatively insignificant, like he was he was a distraction to Atlas. He wasn't a distraction
Yeah.
to us, the audience, but he was a distraction to Atlas to kind of keep her at bay from really digging into Harlan.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. But he was just basically the muscle. He was, Harlan's right hand dude. And I just thought it was funny when she was interrogating him. He was like detached from his body. They just had the head on like this platform. And so he said something to her, to Atlas, and she goes, "Well, that's big coming from a head in a suitcase." And
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny because he literally was a head in a suitcase. And that was a weird interrogation, like one I've never seen before.
Yeah. Then my last one was not necessarily funny, but kind of a good sticking point as far as the climax of the film was concerned. And Harlan was almost trying to take a dig at Atlas because she's like pounding her chest a little bit. We managed to stop you. He says, "Oh, but only with one of my kind." Like, twist the knife a little bit. You hate AI and you need AI to beat me. And she throws it right back, and it's like, "You're right, but Smith is the better version of you." So it's like you think you're this all powerful being, but you weren't even the best or most capable of your kind.
Right, like you were super flawed, and this better version of you came out and ended up being so much better than you ever thought that you would be. In that, he was just Harlan just thought his shit didn't stink. I mean,
no. Yeah.
I don't know that AI shits, but if they did, he totally would think that.
He didn't think his proverbial shit stank.
His metaphorical shit. Yeah. Yeah, but I liked that quote because that kind of, I was like, "Oh, take that." But I also like it just gave that might have been the part like right before I was just like so emotional about him, Smith, like being shut down. What was he, Harlan was taking something of his or messing up his, I forget what the technological term was.
I thought
he didn't say he's cutting out my fusion or I'm running out of, I forget what it was.
Yeah, I thought Smith was just it was something that overpowered him. So I don't know I thought whether it was something that was damage in the fight or if Harlan removed it, but it was something that was just controlling his, kind of balance of energy and power, for lack of a better word. Like
Right.
and it just kind of overpowered his circuitry.
Right. And so it was super sad when he shut down and when she, escaped off of that planet. I forget what the name of the planet was, but she escaped from the planet. And then at the end, it kind of had a bittersweet ending because, yes, the original Smith had kind of been shut down, but it seems like, she goes in at the very end. They're like, "Oh, we've made some improvements to your robot," or whatever it was. And so she gets in, she picks the default, and she hears his voice, and she's like, "Okay, I'm home," basically. Like this is my guy. So that was kind of nice to have it end on a positive note.
It was a way to soften
Yeah.
soften my harsh realities of the film, softening the audience's perspective of AI.
Yeah. It's funny you pronounce the T in soften. I would say soften. Maybe you've been in the Carolinas.
I think I did it unintentionally.
Unintentional. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean it ended on a nice note, which, there's nothing bad about ending it conveniently like that. At least he wasn't gone for good. But I mean the movie overall, it had its slightly ridiculous points, J.Lo's age. But overall, was it better or worse than you expected that it was going to be?
I'd say better. I mean, overall, I'd say
Yeah.
better. It wasn't particularly ridiculous or unrealistic. And I think that's maybe just because we're living in a time where AI is starting to make it more of a prominent feature in people's lives. Obviously, unfortunately, in my opinion. But I think because of that, it set the film up not to be so unbelievable that you really had to put yourself in some futuristic sense to kind of connect to the film a bit. I wasn't turned off by J.Lo's performance of Atlas. I didn't think it was overly cheesy. I didn't think it was cheesy.
Yeah.
I didn't think she was trying too hard. And that's not something because you said it off the top of the show. She's done rom-coms. She did
Yeah.
that hideous J.Lo movie, whatever that thing was. So this was completely out of the box as far as past acting work of hers. And for her to be very convincing in it, I thought was, clap it up for her a little bit.
Right. I mean, this was kind of a sci-fi action movie. I can recall, I think it was maybe the year 2000 or so. She did this movie called The Cell, which was I thought it was futuristic or kind of mysterious or weird. But I don't know that it was sci-fi necessarily. I did watch it, but this was going on probably 24 years ago at this point. So I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch for me to think about exactly what it was about, but yeah, I mean, this was kind of the first
when she was 39.
I can't even do the mental math. I'm so bad. Yeah, 24 years ago, how old would she have been?
30. No. Yeah, 30.
Oh, wow. That's so funny.
So not quite so 39, funny. But in the ballpark.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought I don't really remember ever fighting the urge to look at my phone during this movie. I thought it had some heart. It was a little bit predictable, but for the most part, yeah, you're right. It wasn't cheesy. I was pleasantly surprised. I was entertained. I was invested in the characters and their bond and their relationship. I laughed a little bit. I cried a little bit. It was kind of everything. It was entertaining enough for me.
Yeah, and I wasn't expecting it to have a dark ending, so I wasn't kind of thrown off or disappointed in any way by the way it did end. Yeah, and like I said, it was predictable, but in a good way or a graspable way, if that's a word.
Right.
It wasn't you didn't feel like, oh, I saw that coming from a million miles away. Screw this movie. I wasted 2 hours of my life. You didn't feel like that.
Right. You didn't feel mad about what happened, and it kind of left you with a light feeling okay, that was moderately enjoyable. Okay.
Which you can't be mad about something having a lighter ending.
Right.
Yeah, a darker ending is a nice little change up because obviously we're used to happy endings, but for it to have more of a warm-hearted, lighter ending to it, you can't necessarily be mad about that because that's what we're used to.
Yeah, so I thought it ended nicely. So I overall going into it, I was like, oh geez, what have we gotten ourselves into? J.Lo movie, eek. But I actually I overall enjoyed it. And I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that. So
no complaints.
Yeah. So I mean, we hope you have no complaints ever listening to this show. So if you do enjoy listening, we would appreciate it so, so much if you gave us 5 stars and left us some love. Also, make sure you follow along with us on Instagram and TikTok. It's Binge the Ginge with dots between the words. I think it might be Binge the Ginge without the dots on TikTok. He is Nutmeg, the number 2, Palmetto like the disgusting bug. Give us both follows there. Then stay tuned to the show on all of our platforms. We've got YouTube and Rumble for visuals if you want to see our sparkling red beings. And then for audio, we've got Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. So for episode 17 coming up, we're taking a look at Outer Range on Amazon Prime. So watch that, catch up, and listen in with us. Until the next real review, Red and Red are signing out.
Yeehaw!
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world. And you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What?
Do what?
I'd like to be pimps from Oakland or cowboys from Arizona, but it's not Halloween.
Let the dogs out, you know, like, who let the dogs out? Who brought this guy along?
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
Grow up, Peter Pan. Count Chocula.
X never, ever marks the spot.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
You did. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
No. Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
All right. Then you do us proud. Because I don't want no scrubs.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission.
Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I'll take care, all right? None but love for you. None but love for you.
10. X marks the spot.
Have any clue what's about to happen to him?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.
Blow up! Peace!
Fire, you son of a...
Toodaloo, motherfucker! Hey,
Ain't too proud to beg.
Come on.
What?
It's not funny anymore.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not trying to
TLC references.
Still, nothing. I swear to you.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night, we will not vanish without a fight, we're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.